Hey there, folks. ANDRAS here.
And it's Brian.
And we have a couple of pieces of information for you quick. We're not going to waste too much time. We know you're really excited to hear us talk about Mortdecai, the greatest mustache movie ever. But
we want to just thank everybody. This is our third episode, and we've had a lot of good feedback and followers on Instagram. And it's going great.
Yeah. Thank you for all of your nice emails and shout outs and likes and whatnot. It really helps. And we also have some exciting news. We have joined forces with Paper House Network. And so going forward, we're a network show. Is this your first network show, Brian? It's pretty exciting.
I know. I feel I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen now. I didn't know I was going to make it this far.
Yeah, I was with a network once. It was rough. It can be the politics, network politics can be brutal, man. So get ready. We're in the big time. And we know we're in the big time because this is the most exciting thing. Last week, we found out that we have a new fan. Who is that, Brian?
Yeah, we heard from Lee Daniels, the director of The Paperboy, and he said that we were great, and that he loved our little review of it. So that means the world.
Yeah, we're 2 for 2 in pleasing the directors who have pleased us, and I can't imagine it's going to be that way for all of our episodes, but it would be the best if it was. That's what we want to do, is to get you and understand you great cinema artists who have been misrepresented and misunderstood for so long. And speaking of which, why don't we just get to this show, Brian?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey, comedy fans, make sure you're checking out the New York Comedy Club podcast, the official podcast of the New York Comedy Club. We take an inside look into the world of stand-up comedy as we interview your favorite comedians about the business, the jokes, and the journey as a stand-up comic. So make sure you're checking out the New York Comedy Club podcast, all a part of the Paper House Network.
ANDRAS here. When I'm not co-hosting the World is Wrong podcast, I'm hosting and producing the Radio 8-Ball podcast, where we answer questions by picking songs at random, like picking musical tarot cards. We've hosted musical divinations for people like John C. Reilly, Patricia Arquette, Tig Notaro, and Fred Armisen, and hosted over 200 songwriters, providing the randomly chosen answers from Inara George and Dan Byrne to Mose Allison and Alan Toussaint. That's Radio 8-Ball, all one word. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts and download our app from the iTunes App Store.
I'm Larry Bishop, and you're listening to the World is Wrong podcast.
We're here to tell you how the world is wrong. The world is wrong about
Mortdecai.
Welcome to the World is Wrong podcast, an extremely positive podcast where we celebrate the maligned and misunderstood and ignored cinema of our age. I'm one of your hosts, ANDRAS Jones.
And I'm Brian Connolly, the other one.
With a mad dog going on in the background. What's the dog's name if it's going to be on the show? We need to tell the listeners so they know and love this animal.
I have 2 dogs, one named Lonnie Anderson after the great actress Lonnie Anderson, and Ladybird named after Lady Bird Johnson.
Oh, not after the film.
Never seen it.
Really? Oh, well, I guess maybe we'll have to deal with that at some point. But today we're not talking about Ladybird. We're not talking about a film featuring Lonnie Anderson, although I'm sure it would benefit from her appearance. But no, we're talking about a film that I chose, and I'm so excited to talk with you about, a film called Mortdecai. I guess since I picked it, you get to ask me questions about it. So fire away.
Okay. I guess let's start with why did you pick this movie? This is an interesting second pick. Because the first one, Mad Dog Time, I knew why you picked that, because that was sort of like why we have this podcast. But why was this the next one? I feel the second one maybe even is more important than the first one, you know?
Yeah, I think so. Well, definitely. This is a song. This is a song. This is a movie that I have spent a lot of time. It's new. It's a relatively new film, but it is sort of the most recent film that I can think of to come out that really typifies The World Is Wrong, a film that is sort of an easy punchline for a joke, and so a lot of people took shots at it. But I mean, I've watched this film probably more times than most movies I've watched. In just the last year and a half to 2 years, I've probably watched this film 10 to 12 times. It's become just
Wow.
comfort food for me. I love it. The last time I watched it, I laughed uproariously through parts. It tickles me, and we'll get into it. So I have some very personal reasons why I love it that I don't expect to be true for other people. So I get why, like, I'm uniquely devoted to this film on just a personal fondness level. And then I have some maybe more dispassionate takes on why I just think it's great, as maybe not worth watching 12 times, but certainly worth watching once and enjoying, as opposed to, I don't know, whatever people are doing who don't like it. But and I'll say this other thing is that I guess we'll get into when we get into the description of the film, I'll talk more about a very specific thing about it that, or it'll just become obvious what's specific about it that really speaks to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, next question: how is the world wrong about?
Wait. No, I gotta back up for a second because I need to know. Did you like it?
Oh, did I like it? I wouldn't say like, but I loved Johnny Depp, and I think I was thrown off because it wasn't at all what I was expecting to be whatsoever. So I feel I maybe need to watch it again, because the whole time I was kind of like, oh, this is not at all what I thought this movie was going to be. And I mean, we talked about this with Mad Dog Time. Like the first time I saw that, same thing. I'm just like, when you watch certain movies that don't fit in with how other movies are, the first time is kind of maybe the hardest one. And then the second time you can be like, okay, now that I know what I'm getting into, I can like really dig into it. But I was blown away by Johnny Depp's performance. I thought he was amazing in this movie. Like really, really good. Maybe one of his best performances for sure. It's like he is, and I'm a sucker for slapstick, and I'm a sucker for kind of like really ridiculous characters overacting in a way, or acting bigger than the rest of the people in the movie. And definitely Johnny Depp is sort of like on a different level than everybody else in this movie, and he's brilliant.
Well, check one. That's one of the things that people were about to say, how the world is wrong about this film. Well, one of the ways the world is wrong about this film is that a lot of the reviews singled out Johnny Depp's performance as being too over the top. And it's sort of like, Johnny Depp is over the top. It's like, this is the only film where he's over the top, where he seems like he's enjoying himself. Like he's been over the top in all these other things, but they're horrible. Like he's playing horrible, miserable, monstrous characters. I mean, even Edward Scissorhands. I mean, it's a beautiful, kind of understated performance, but it's so over the top. But it's sort of like
he's always over the top.
Yeah, that's
what
it.
He does. Like that's.
And this is, so it's a guy who does over the top. I'm with you. I think it's one of his best performances, and I've enjoyed. I've been a Depp booster for a long time. Back to Nick of Time. Love Nick of Time. Anyway, we could do one on that. So how the world is wrong about this? Well, most of the reviews are just we're just savage to it. They're dismissive of it. I think it's because they're looking for the wrong movie. They're all like, how did these people get together and make this dumb movie that doesn't succeed on all these levels? And it's like, I don't think the movie's trying to succeed on those levels. It's trying to succeed on totally other levels. Like you're saying, with the slapstick, with the over-the-top performances, and then ultimately what the film's about. And I think that's like the main. I think that's the main thing where the world is wrong about this about this film. And so maybe I should just get into the the description of what the film is about.
Let's do it.
Okay.
We hurried back to Mortdecai Manor, where my beloved wife Joanna, having heard of our financial distress, was arriving home to sell off some of my prized possessions. Even my horsey picture was on the block. But I was hopeful my new moustache would cheer her up.
Darling. Oh, God, I missed you terribly.
Joanna, love of my life, apple of my eye.
God, I so wish you'd been there. Can you imagine? The two of us in that frigid city, only our passions keeping us warm. What is that?
Just a little something I cooked up whilst you were away, my darling. I do believe it was Maggie Thatcher who said that kissing a man without a moustache is rather like eating an egg without salt.
Don't point that thing at me.
Told ya.
I have put no inconsiderable thought and effort into this endeavor. You see, the domain of a man's upper lip is his sovereign ground.
You have 5 minutes to shake it off.
Every Mortdecai man before me had the same. Why can't I? Oh, I happen to be terribly fond of it, and I have had every intention of seeing it through.
You mean it's going to get bigger?
It will come to fruition, yes.
Darling. You really won't shave it off?
Oh, I can't, my duck. Not at this juncture. It's not even fully cooked. It's a baby.
Jock?
Yes, madam.
Please will you make up the guest bedroom for Mr. Mortdecai?
Already have, madam.
Unlike what most people are going to tell you Mortdecai is about, Mortdecai is a very simple story about a man who grows a mustache and has to save the world in order to get his wife to sleep with him. Everything else in this beautiful movie is all around this one basic premise around which I have never seen a movie about this. I'm not going to say universal conundrum, but I think any man who has ever been in a relationship and grown a mustache, or even any other kind of facial hair, but particularly a mustache, or any woman who has ever been in a relationship with a man who decided that he had to grow a mustache, is going to find a particular pleasure in this film that's wrapped around this intrigue and all this stuff, but that is the core story here. And to me, as someone for whom that's a very personal story, that's what makes this a unique film and why it's beloved to me. Now, I could go into the performances, and there's a whole art heist. Again, every part of the movie that's plot driven, and we can get into it, is stuff you've seen before, and what I think is distinguishes it is great actors doing great bits within it. But at the core of the story is this weird love story, marital love story about a disagreement over a mustache. And specifically, whenever the film really leans into focusing on the mustache humor, I am completely enraptured. And I understand that for people who have prejudices against mustaches, which I consider a kind of body shaming that's akin to, fat shaming or making fun of any other physical expression. So for people who have prejudices against mustaches, I get it. This is going to be a hard film for you to watch, but that's your prejudice. This film loves mustaches. And I love mustaches. And if you've ever passionately had to stand up for your mustache in a relationship, I think you would wish that it played out as adorably as it does in this film. And let me just throw out a couple of other quick little things. Gwyneth Paltrow, I've been wrong about her. Like, I've been the world who's wrong about her. This film won me back into the Paltrow camp, which I've been out of for a long time, and reminded me why Ewan McGregor is one of the best. Like, he's doing some comic stuff in this that rivals Depp's work, I think. Both of them are amazing. And then Bettany is doing something that's sort of out of this world as sort of the fourth wheel in this, as the manservant to Johnny Depp's Mortdecai.
He's kind of doing like a Jason Statham impersonation, like a really good Jason Statham.
Yeah. Like sexy,
like
tough English guy.
Cockney kind of guy.
And there's other really good stuff about this. I could go into it, but I think I've been thinking about it. I think that's why I chose it, is because there's something personal. I think for a podcast like ours, why we would choose these films, it's a very personal thing. Like, I'm not saying that the world, like, if you hate mustaches, then you really shouldn't watch this film. But I would also say, if you hate mustaches, you have no soul.
And it's in the small category of movies about mustaches. There's maybe like 3 in the history of cinema.
Tell me.
And that's kind of it.
Tell me the other 2.
There's the movie The Mustache, the French movie. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
That would be a great double feature with this, because it's about a guy who shaves his mustache off, comes out to show his wife, and he's like, look, and she's like, what? And he's like, the mustache is gone. And she's like, you never had a mustache? And he's like, what are you talking about? And it's a thriller about why does no one remember he had a mustache? He did. And he goes, and he slowly loses his mind trying to figure out why no one remembers that he had a mustache.
Oh God,
that's great.
That sounds terrifying. That sounds terrifying. That's really good. That is a nightmare of a horror film. Okay. Okay.
And that's it. That's the only 2 movies I can think of about mustaches.
So can we talk?
There's 2 movies.
So what's your take on mustaches and the mustache humor in this film?
So I'm a great mustache fan. Like, being of Sicilian heritage, I can grow a mustache when I was like 11. And as soon as I could, I did. And I can grow a better mustache than like most any person I know. And I found I had the opposite problem as Mortdecai, and as did my father, that we get with women who won't let us shave it off. It's like they want you to keep it. They want you to keep the mustache or the beard, and like once you shave it off, they're not as excited. So there's been times where I don't want a mustache.
So did you find? I mean, so you've had mustache-related, not drama, but let's say friction in relationships in the past. Did you feel like you related to that source of marital strife in this film, or the way I did, or not?
Yeah, because I think it's like it is a thing that you have to consider if you're in a serious relationship with somebody. Like, whether or not you have facial hair really is something you have to. It's like having a kid. You have to kind of talk about it with the person you're with. You can't just show up with a mustache like Mortdecai does. He should have had a talk with his wife saying, I'm thinking about getting a mustache. Like, here are the pros and cons, because you can't surprise a person with that. Because if they like you and they kiss you all the time, they're going to have to deal with it more than you even have to deal with it. You know, and it was funny to see this couple, like it's kind of crazy. Like, when you watch the movie, you're like, oh, okay, a mustache joke. And then it happens again. You're like, oh, okay, another mustache joke. And it's like, oh, now they're having a conversation about it. And now they're having another conversation. And you're like, oh, this is really like the main subplot of this movie is that he has a mustache.
It's
like,
not the main, it's the plot. It is, no, it's the only thing in the film that has any stakes. Nothing else matters. This whole thing about saving the world, the only reason is to get his wife to have sex with him.
And it's kind of a bold choice, because we live in a world where in the last 10 years, mustache humor has been very prevalent. Like, you can buy big funny little mustache gags, and like it's been like they were like Anchorman and all these movies that have mustache jokes, like Chuck Norris jokes and all these things. And this movie could have like gone into that part of the mustache world where it's kind of tiresome and sort of played out, but it isn't. It's like because it's about a mustache within a relationship. It's a different take on the mustache joke. It's not just Johnny Depp has a funny mustache. Like, he has a mustache, and his wife is repelled by it, and they're trying to figure this out. This is like the biggest problem of their relationship, and how can they work through? Because he's refusing to get rid of it, and it's like from beginning to end, like the whole 110 minutes of this movie. It's like if you don't, like you said, like if you're not into mustaches or mustache jokes, you might not enjoy any moment of this movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. It is. If that's a problem for you, this is going to be a problem for you. But one of my favorite moments let's talk about some moments in this. Like, One of my favorite moments is he has there's this terrorist guy, but the villain in it also has a mustache. And there is a great moment where they're in a clinch and you think they're going to kill each other. And then they just start complimenting each other's mustaches. Oh, it makes me so happy. I could watch that scene forever. I wish that was what the world was like. It was like people who would fight would take breaks between fighting to just compliment each other on their magnificent facial hair before they go back to trying to kill each other. Like it seems like it should be a hackneyed joke, but it totally works. And I think it's just like all the actors are selling this stuff, selling these beats over and over again. Did you have a particular favorite mustache joke?
I mean, I just really liked the gag reflex of Gwyneth Paltrow every time
yes.
she comes near it. It's just like it feels very real. It's a very real gag reflex.
And he has a sympathetic gag reflex, so that's another little bit that they have where they're both always gagging. Okay, well, we've talked about. We could talk forever about how I just think Johnny Depp is great in it. I feel like when I'm watching it, I'm watching Johnny Depp doing an English detective the way that Peter Sellers would do a French detective. Like it's that over the top charactery, but I don't think it's not more over the top or more like they always pick on his accent. I don't think his accent's any worse than Peter Sellers' French accent. It's a joke accent. It's not supposed to be. We're not supposed to believe that he's a real guy.
And he's kind of doing a Terry Thomas impersonation.
Yes,
is what it seems like. Like with a gap in the teeth. Like he's doing not just a British person. He's not doing like Austin Powers British. He's doing this sort of like proper, this sort of like uptight in a way. Like the character isn't uptight necessarily, but he has that kind of like well-educated British accent, almost like a Woosters and Jeeves sort of character.
I'm on the bonnet. That's one of my favorite lines in the film. The way he runs, and everything he does in this movie is so hilarious.
The way he sneaks around, like when he's trying to be quiet, and he's doing this very exaggerated, like cartoonish sneaking.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever seen an actual human, like a non-cartoon character, sneak around the way that Johnny Depp does in this as Mortdecai. Like it's like the best, most exaggerated, like Daffy Duck sort of sneaking around, and like everything he does, like, it's crazy to me on how like people would complain about his performance being over the top in this movie. Like that's the Johnny Depp we love. We love an over the top. Like we don't want to see a like a Johnny Depp just being normal. Like we love Captain Jack Sparrow. We love Hunter S. Thompson. Like we want him to be those bigger than life, larger than life characters. And this is just another one of those. And he's really good at playing these kind of characters. So for people to zero in on it and say like, this movie's bad because of the way he's acting, like it actually makes less sense that he acts the way he does in other movies. It makes more sense in this movie, because it's like, it's weird. It's weirder when you see him act big in a movie when he has weird parts in movies that are kind of dramas. But this is a slapstick, ridiculous comedy. So shouldn't it kind of all work together that he's acting ridiculous in it?
I certainly think so.
And the fact that he was like nominated for like worst actor for the Raspberry Awards is ridiculous. He clearly like put everything into this part.
Yeah.
Like, he's not phoning it in. Like he's doing a good job.
Yeah, he's as someone who really likes his work, I rank this in his top performances. Certainly the one I enjoy the most so far. I mean, yeah, Hunter S. Thompson's. I mean, I can't watch. I love Fear and Loathing. I don't want to watch it 12 times. I will watch this movie another 10 times in my lifetime easily. So let's talk about. So a couple of the supporting performances. I think that particularly Paltrow and Ewan McGregor really stand out as being as good as Johnny Depp, and also being pretty over the top, but seeming really grounded because like they're playing. Well, what do you think they're doing? I feel like they're both playing definitely playing characters and definitely acting all the time.
Yeah.
But they're sort of the grounding influences. But let's just take them one at a time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Gwyneth Paltrow in this, because I'm the wounds of Shakespeare in love, is the wound just keeps giving. But sometimes she's amazing, and I feel like she is, she's just a great comic presence in this, and she definitely, it's not one of those films that relegates her to sort of the wife role. She has lots of scenes on her own adventures outside of this. Super fully rounded character, very strong, very funny, very just adorable. Like, I know why Johnny Depp is fighting. Like, why I believe that it's a challenge to choose between the mustache and Gwyneth Paltrow. Whereas before this film, if you had asked me choose between a mustache and Gwyneth Paltrow, it would have been very easy. Mustache all the way. But she's so good in this. I can see why it's tough. So, what do you think?
I think she plays a great kind of like straight woman to Depp's Mortdecai. Like, she's really good, and like he's going big, but she's able to kind of bounce it back and forth with him. And it's interesting because she's always sort of like, and this is how she is in real life to people. She's sort of like, I'm the perfect lady. I know the healthiest food to eat. I know how to keep my body in shape. And in this movie, you believe that she is also like this person who's just kind of perfect and has this, does what she wants and does it very well. But the whole time you're kind of like, but why are you with this goofball? But you don't deny that she loves him. Like, even though she does not love his mustache, there is a chemistry that they have in this movie that feels very believable. It feels very believable in that they seem like a couple that have been together for a while. And I like that the romance between them isn't him courting her or wooing her and trying to get her to like him, much like another movie with a guy pretending British, like Elizabeth Hurley and Austin Powers. It's not him trying to be charming and funny to make this lady like him. Like, she already likes him. They're married. Like, they live together. and you don't really know how long they've been together. It could be like 15 years for all you know. And it feels very believably lived in, like their relationship. And the fact that the whole drama is just that he grew a mustache and she does not approve is so believable to be the problem that a couple being together for 15 years might have. And she plays it off so well. And like, I really believe in them as a couple in this, which is weird because it shouldn't make sense, but yet it does.
Yeah. Yeah. She has a great scene just on her own with the actor Michael Byrne playing the old Duke, where there's just all this great, like, he can't hear and he's saying things, he's deaf, but he's saying things really loud so that she's right there to hear him. And he keeps trying to, she thinks he's coming on to him. There's just a great little acting, like pure acting scene between, just like a lot of films wouldn't give her that moment. And it's really about her dominating the scene with a great actor who is actually the one carrying all the comedy. So I love, that's the kind of film you see, the kind of scene that maybe British films like give you a little bit more time for, this little anecdote off to the side, which I really enjoyed. And then now we've talked about two American actors playing British.
Yeah.
But Ewan McGregor, what the hell is he doing? Because first of all, they've been together for a while, Depp and Mortdecai, and I don't remember what Gwyneth Paltrow's character's name is. Let me bring it up here. Johanna. What Johanna's they've been together since college, because Depp, we find out that Mortdecai sort of snaked Johanna away from Ewan McGregor's super sincere character coming to bring her poetry when they were in college together. And now Ewan McGregor is pining for Gwyneth Paltrow and hates Johnny Depp. Everyone in this movie hates Mortdecai. That's the other thing. I love heroes who everyone in the movie hates and is dismissive towards. It's one of my favorite things in like detectives, like when there's a detective who we know they're cool, but everyone in the film treats them like they're a total loser. pleases me. I love that dynamic. But so Ewan McGregor is sort of like, he hates Johnny Depp and he has to use him, and he's trying to angle to get Gwyneth Paltrow for himself. And I feel like every scene he's in is hilarious.
Yeah, and he's sort of doing like a James Bond sort of character in a way, you know. But
yeah, sort of like James Bond is played by Hugh Grant.
Yeah, but you have this little windows into his vulnerability, you know. So like he'll have this like confident moment, but then you'll kind of see like him wondering like how can he figure out how to take Mortdecai's wife? How can he get the upper hand in that? And it's really he's really good in it.
On the James Bond front, did you notice there's a scene, sort of a climactic scene where one of the many MacGuffins in this film catches on fire, and right before that, Ewan McGregor sort of slides into the room as if it's the beginning of a James Bond film. Like he has his gun out and he's doing the James Bond pose from the opening of James Bond. And I just feel like the film, like his performance is full of these little moments like that you're like, oh, that's some smart, funny comic choices making me very happy. Yeah. Any other standouts about Ewan McGregor you want to mention before we move on through this cast of heroes?
I just think that he should do more comedies. Like I feel like he doesn't get to do enough funny stuff. Like he kind of is, you know, considered a dramatic actor, I guess. But the rare time he gets to do a comedy, he's really good always. Like another movie we will do someday in the show is A Life Less Ordinary, and I think that movie's really great, and he's really funny in that movie. And in here, it's like seeing him be able to do, even though he's sort of the other straight man to Mortdecai, he's still really funny, and I want to see more of that from him.
Unfortunately, the reputation of this film will not help that cause, but I think that we're going to be running into a lot of that. That was like Gabriel Byrne in Mad Dog Time. On the other side, Zac Efron in Paperboy. It's these films where these great actors who do other things get a chance to do something that's so compelling.
Yeah.
Now, you already talked about Paul Bettany. Oh, you want to say something else?
No,
about Ewan McGregor?
I was about to go into what you're saying right now. Yeah, I think he is the best person in this movie other than Depp. I think he's so good. It's like, and this is again a role he doesn't normally get to play. Usually he plays a more sensitive character, like usually, or even in stuff like the Avengers, like there's a sensitivity, and then here he plays this like brutish, you know, like womanizer, violent guy, and it's really funny to see him play this sort of like, you know, this like back alley kind of like, you know, hood, and he's really good at it. And how did they know he can do that? I don't know, because he's never played a role like this before. But it's so, and all the little jokes with him are really good.
So let's just like go back here and do the math. So what we have Johnny Depp giving one of the great performances of his career. We have Gwyneth Paltrow leaning into her Gwynethness in a way that actually works. Yeah. We have Paul Bettany, as you say, getting to play a character that he usually doesn't get to play, and Ewan McGregor getting both of them doing comedy in a way that they don't usually get to. And that's just got to be a joy. And also, I want to be clear, most of the humor coming from Bettany and McGregor is not mustache related at all. I mean, other than they make fun of Mortdecai's mustache a little bit, but for the most part, their jokes are coming from a totally other place. So even if maybe if you hate mustaches, it's going to be hard for you to watch this film. But if you're neutral on mustaches, there's a lot of other stuff. You don't have to be as passionate about mustaches as I am, or as Mortdecai is, to love this film. There's we haven't even gotten into talking about Olivia Munn, and of course the return to the World Is Wrong podcast of Jeff Goldblum.
Do you think and we talked about this with Mad Dog Time, and I think there was definitely this in Paperboy, and I think there's a theme of all three of these movies so far, in that you get these actors that we're used to seeing a certain way. And then in these movies, we're seeing them kind of try something new, being allowed to do something different. And for some reason, people hate that. For some reason, audiences hate that. They don't want to see people do something different. They don't want to see an actor not just be the way that they're comfortable with seeing seen them do the things they do, you know. And it's got to be hard for actors to have to be put in these little boxes, like Larry Bishop said in his interview, like Burt Reynolds was so excited to wear false teeth because he never was allowed to do that. But it's like, this guy's been an actor for decades and decades, and not once was he allowed to wear some fake weird teeth because he wanted to for the character. That's crazy. Let these people, you know, be creative and let them have a say in their characters. And maybe it doesn't have to be the same role every time from Paul Bettany. You know, like, that's okay. You don't want these people to get bored with their jobs.
Yeah. I agree 100%. That is, I think we're going to run into that a lot. And I think maybe that's how the world is wrong. I will say that in doing research on this, there is a pushback against the hatred for this film. I think that there are some either unprejudiced or super pro mustache viewers out there who are finding it and loving it. And I think it really is a film that does not deserve the amount of vitriol. I think that there's something about just the picture of Johnny Depp with the mustache and Mortdecai. It was so easy for late night comics to be like, and then blah, 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 Mortdecai. And everyone was like, oh yeah, we hate that.
But like, why? Is it because he's a quote unquote real actor? Because like, if this was like a Will Ferrell movie, like, even if it wasn't a great movie, no one would give it the same amount of hate that this movie got. You know, like, how many movies does Will Ferrell have like a funny mustache or some haircut or so, you know, like, but he doesn't get the same, you know, like, hatred that for Johnny Depp for some reason is that everyone's just like, fuck you, Johnny Depp. How dare you have a silly mustache in a movie? I hate this. And like, I won't even watch it. And like, the movie, nobody saw this movie. It tanked at the box office. Like, it did not make its money back globally. It couldn't make its money back. And I just don't get, like, you're right. Like, why? Like, I get, like, we're 3 episodes in now. Like, I understand why people were confused or hated Mad Dog Time, because it's not a movie for everybody. It's really, really different and strange. So yeah, I don't personally agree, but I can see why someone would be like, oh, I can't hang with this. And I can see why people wouldn't like The Paperboy, because it's very upsetting and it's, like, you know, it's shocking. But why the hate for this movie? Like, how is this any worse than some other comedy with like Melissa McCarthy in a wig or something? Like, why does this movie get the hate so bad?
Yeah, I think particularly Depp and Paltrow are people who are actors who people have some very mixed feelings about. Obviously, and like I said, there is a very strong antipathy among some people for mustaches. I noticed on RogerEbert.com, the reviewer was Peter Zobzinski, reviewed it, and he gave it a very negative review. And then I go and look at a picture of him, and he has a massive, very unattractive beard. And he's a guy who obviously doesn't respect his own mustache. He allows this terrible beard to sit on his face. And so, I mean, of course, someone who has that beard is not going to appreciate this film. And I'm not trying to knock Peter Zobzinski any more than he's knocking this film. We just have different tastes. And it makes sense to me. So I get, like, that's a very strong prejudice that people have. And it's one that I don't think, I mean, it's not like anyone talks about it. It doesn't deserve to be discussed even you know, we're talking about prejudice. There are obviously massive degrees of other prejudice that are worth talking about. But in the course of talking about Mortdecai, we have to consider that as a part of it. That, like, some people have really, and you know, it's not, some of that might come honestly, like, you might have known a creepy guy with a mustache. And if that's your experience with it, I'm sorry. And I don't think, you know, you shouldn't feel obligated to watch Mortdecai and have difficult feelings. But I just think of all the guys I know. Whenever I see a guy with a mustache, there's a part of me that's like, solidarity, brother. Even if I don't have one, I know every day you're fighting that battle.
I bet.
And I feel like him when he gets in that elevator and he sees all those people with the mustaches. Yeah. And yeah, that makes me so happy. I know that feeling.
Y'all just give that nod.
If you don't know that feeling. Yeah.
I bet Gene Shalit would have loved this movie.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's a man with a mustache. And like, if he can't appreciate this movie, Yeah, like what critic could?
Just think about people who would appreciate this movie. Burt Reynolds would appreciate this movie. Lionel Richie would appreciate this movie.
Yeah.
The Beatles would have appreciated this movie in 1967.
Yeah. Taft.
Who?
Taft, the president. He had a great mustache.
He had a great mustache.
And you're right. There's like a thing like when you can grow like, and I know you've done this before. Like when you grow a mustache that you're so proud of, and you're like, man, I did it. Like this is a mustache. You will get people that make fun of you, but then you'll get other people, guys with mustaches, who'll kind of give you this look of like you have this like we're in the club now. You're like we are in the club. Like you can grow a great mustache, I can grow a great mustache. And I found whenever I grow a mustache that I'm proud of, I only get compliments from other men. I only hear from other men like, "Oh, that's an amazing mustache. I love it. Oh, I wish I could grow one like that. Oh, that's so great." Like it's only like women don't have the same strong feelings, or maybe it's more of a private thing for them. Whereas other dudes want to tell another guy if they appreciate the mustache, you'll hear it from that other guy.
Yeah, and then I feel like this movie is a massive, big budget version of that. It's a movie that is doing that. It's just saying, "Nice mustache."
Well, it's interesting because the director is a clean-cut, clean-shaven man. David Koepp, is that how you say his name?
Koepp. I think it's David Koepp. David Koepp.
He looks like a guy who's never had a mustache. Or, like I've seen him with a picture with a goatee. So I guess that's close. Goatee is close enough in a way. Not quite. I feel like you're not quite going in on that. But it's interesting that a man who doesn't seem to normally have a mustache would devote a year plus to making a movie about such a thing.
Also, a guy who is not known for his comedies, and I don't think he'll probably get to make another one, but he made one of my favorite comedies easily my favorite big budget comedy since Bridesmaids.
I don't think he's even written another comedy, right? Like this is it.
Well, he didn't write this one. This was written by a guy named Eric Aronson.
But he's known mostly as a screenwriter in Hollywood and less so a director. And he hasn't even he has twice as many screenwriting credits as he does directing, and none of that's even comedy. So he's not a comedy guy.
Which, I mean, if you're one of the people who doesn't like this film, that's like real fodder to tear into it. Like, this guy doesn't do comedy. He should never do comedy. Where I feel like the exact opposite is like, this guy this guy should do more comedies with Johnny Depp. You should put together this team again and make more movies with this exact team. There should be a Mortdecai 2, and Eric Aronson, who wrote this, that's what I have to think, is whoever this Eric Aronson, who wrote the screenplay, he's currently working, according to IMDb, on a version of Still Life with Woodpecker, the Tom Robbins novel. And that's his only other screenwriting credit. And I have to think that so much of what's good about this movie must come from the combination of the source material and the screenplay, and obviously Johnny Depp, whatever he's bringing to it. But there's some real comic chops in this, and I don't know where it's coming from when you look at the credit list.
I wanted, because I was shocked when I saw at the end that it said it was based on a book, and I looked it up, and it's based on a trilogy of books. There are 3 books. This is based on a novel. So it's not just a crazy, silly comedy. It's a crazy, silly comedy that has a literary source, which is very rare. That's not a thing you normally see. There's no Mike Myers movie based on a book, except for Cat in the Hat. But Austin Powers is its own weird comedy. And I thought this was the same thing, but it's based on a book from 1972.
Yeah, and they expected this to be a franchise. That's the whole thing, is they were making it really thinking that this was going to be a franchise. I actually I recorded a song called "Absolutely No Sense of Humor" that was produced by Bruce Witkin, who's in the cast as a member of the band at the wedding, and he's an old friend of Johnny Depp's. And he was saying that, I guess within the Depp camp, there were a lot of people who sort of felt like this was over the top, like they was going for too much. And I don't want to get in an argument with someone who's involved. Like, this was just one of the many troublesome arguments I've had about this film, is like even people within the world of the film have a really negative opinion about the excess of it, where I'm like, I mean, what do you want from a movie? I mean, it's a movie comedy. Like excess is what it's all about. Like Caddyshack, excess, you know,
Yeah.
pick a great, pick a great comedy, excess, The Imposters,
Yeah.
excess. Oh, so we haven't got to that yet. But lots of, yeah.
It's like, it's exactly what you want for a comedy like this to be. Like, you don't want it to be more dramatic.
Yeah, what
You
would
want
have
it to be
made this
really,
better?
Like, I don't know what people want, and like maybe it was the way they sold the movie. Because the reason why I didn't see it is because the way the trailers made it made it kind of look like a Wes Anderson movie. So you're kind of like, oh, this is sort of like some Wes Anderson sort of thing. Is that what this is? Where everyone's got their little outfit on, and there's like the wallpaper, you know. That's my definition of every Wes Anderson movie. And I think people were like, oh, maybe because Gwyneth Paltrow's in it, and you're thinking Royal Tenenbaums, and it's called Mortdecai, and that's the name of the bird in the Royal Tenenbaums. And so people are getting this like big Wes Anderson vibe, but nobody wants that from a movie other than Wes Anderson. So I think a lot of people were like, oh, here's some shitty Wes Anderson knockoff. I don't need to go see that. And like I had no idea it was this goofy and slapsticky. I didn't know it was kind of like a spy spoof in a way. Like I love these kind of movies. I love a kind of a spy spoof movie. Like there's not enough of them. And I think it was maybe just in the marketing they didn't know how to sell the movie, and it just kind of threw people off.
Yeah. Well, didn't throw me off. It threw. So wait, you said you didn't. So for someone who didn't like the film, or you seem to have. Maybe we have different definitions of liking something, but you seem to have enjoyed a lot of elements about this, or maybe you're just really good at de-escalating conflict.
I think I wished the rest of the movie was as good as Johnny Depp. Is how I thought. I was like, he is bringing something strong here, and I felt a lot of the movie got weighed down with sort of the espionage, sort of like let's get the like the mystery part of it. I did not care for that plot. Like if it was just about the mustache, sign me up. But like once it got into just sort of like a lot of like not as well done like car chase scenes and stuff like that, I was just kind of like, okay, you know, like I want where's the funny part again? You know, like I feel like I wished it was just went all in on a ridiculous comedy.
You're wrong. No, sorry. No. I get it. There's something. I think maybe that's part. I think it might be the reason that it's become a kind of comfort food for me. Is there's those aspects of the movie are like the hackneyed aspects of it are so hackneyed. I mean, it's kind of like What's Up, Doc? It's like there's these like everything that's not hilarious is just so comfortable and so professionally done. That I'm like, okay, cool, you know, because in a couple minutes, something Johnny Depp is going to say or do something that tickles me, and then and then we have a great moment with Ewan McGregor and Gwyneth Paltrow having a lunch, and both of them being so good. It's like, yeah,
it's really weird. It's really weird that this movie went with an R rating. Like maybe that also hindered it from being a hit. Like, why did this movie have to be rated R? There's no reason for that.
Where is the R?
Like he says fuck.
I mean, there's a couple of boob jokes.
There's a few, but I mean, even like the crude jokes is no more crude than, like I said, a Mike Myers movie or a Will Ferrell movie. So there is like he says fuck once, I think, and there's I guess the scene where like Gwyneth Paltrow and Johnny Depp have sex in college, but it's like so tame. It's so like you see them on TV, you know, like they're like, why is this rated R? It's almost like the MPAA is like, we want to make sure nobody gets to see this movie, that nobody will even try. We're going to give this movie an R rating. Because this should be like, this is the type of movie you could totally watch with your family. Like, you know, like if it was like a holiday, if like everybody's over for Thanksgiving or something, and you have to put a movie on that everyone can enjoy. Like, this movie's totally inoffensive in that way. Like, there's nothing in here that would make someone get really upset.
Yeah, I hadn't even really thought about that. That is odd. Maybe because they don't want to encourage. Maybe I think I know what it is. I know what it is. I know actually because they make jokes. They make a couple of jokes about. She says that kissing him is like kissing a vagina.
But even the way she says it, it's no worse than a PG-13 joke in a movie. Like PG-13 movies can get raw now. There's no rules.
I think that there's the combination of the prejudice against mustaches and vaginas it was just too much for the MPAA, and they could not handle it. There was just too much raw honesty. Maybe it was the joke about Maggie Thatcher. Maybe you're not allowed to make jokes.
Those conservatives don't want you to make jokes about Margaret Thatcher. They don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. That is odd. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to go. You know what? I think I'm gonna have to give it a 13th watch to see where the R rating came from. It's a new way to look at this film, which it just reveals itself to me I need to watch this. I think everyone needs to watch this at least once or twice a year. What would it be like whenever you any time that you want? And then who is the ultimate on Burt Reynolds' birthday? We should make that like a national mustache day. I think can we agree that Burt Reynolds probably greatest mustache in film history?
I would say yes. I would agree without a doubt. The most famous, like him and Groucho Marx, and Groucho's wasn't even real half the time.
Yeah, that was a fake. There are a couple. I mean, Robert Redford and Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. That's pretty good, yeah. But it's not. It doesn't. That's too good looking. It's not. You feel like he's never going to get any pushback on that mustache, whereas you feel like Burt Reynolds is going to get pushback on that mustache.
Definitely, yeah, definitely. Except for the few that are really, really into it, and those people are going to be really, really, really into it.
Sally Field was probably really into mustaches.
And mustaches, I guess, are like this movie. It's just like it's actually perfect that people didn't like this movie because it has to be exactly like a mustache. It's not for everybody. A lot of people are going to not like it, but the few that do are going to really, really like it.
Well, I think that's for people who are like me and have been waiting to have this conversation. I hope you found this. And then for people who are like everyone else, I think we've said mustache way too many times. And so let's bring this sucker home. Just a little bit of business. If you like what it is we're doing here, please share our extremely positive podcast with your film-loving friends and with those whose terrible opinions you wish to refute. Also, it really helps if you give us 5-star ratings and glowing reviews at Apple Podcasts and wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to reach out to us with comments or suggestions, you can find us at theworldiswrongpodcast.com. And in our next episode, we're going to be looking at one of Brian's selections.
After last season. So where can we find you when we're not on this podcast?
Yes. Well, I host the Radio 8 Ball show, Radio 8 Ball, all one word with the number 8. It's a musical divination podcast where we answer questions by picking songs at random and interpreting those randomly chosen songs as the answers to the questions. At some point in this podcast, I probably played a promo about it, and you heard it, and you thought, what the hell is that? Well, check it out wherever you find your podcasts. Radio 8 Ball, all one word. If you like synchronicity in music, it's your jam, babies.
And you can find me on the Director's Wall podcast with Mr. AJ Gonzalez, where we analyze the entire filmography of a director, and we have worked through Shyamalan, Coppola, and who knows what's next.
I want to say I love the Director's Wall podcast. I listen to it every time it comes out. Mostly I am pleased by it. Occasionally I take issue, but that's what a great film podcast does. You're like, oh, how did you say that? I love that film in a totally different way. But you're very smart,
personal.
And I love it. I love the Coppola podcast and most of the Shyamalan podcast, and people should check it out. Cool. You can find us at theworldiswrongpodcast.com. And thanks for listening. And just remember, wherever you are, the world is wrong. And it might be wrong about you.
Joanna.
Alistair.
So glad you called.
I've asked for a Chardonnay. That is your drink, isn't it?
I remembered. Thank you.
Oh, God, how thoughtless of me. You're on duty.
And in charge, thank you very much. To what do I owe the pleasure?
I was just in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop round and see how you secret agent men run the world.
Not nearly. Although it is terribly vital work. It's not all Chardonnay and afternoon trysts.
Is this a tryst?
No. No. No, I was just,
Of course you were.
Hi, I'm Brian.
And I'm AJ.
And we have a podcast called The Director's Wall.
Examining a filmmaker's career, film by film. First up was M. Night Shyamalan, then Francis Ford Coppola. Who's next? Is there anything to this whole auteur theory? Find out on
The Director's Wall.
Subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or your preferred listening platform.